Again, good morning and welcome to an introduction to fruit tree pruning. We are super excited to have Elizabeth Ruiz with us today. She is all knowledgeable on all things tree related and pruning, and I'm sure you've seen other videos from her on pruning Japanese maples. She's done a citrus class. Like we have her as often as we can possibly get her scheduled to come on and talk with us. So again, extremely excited to have her here today. The name of her company is Go With Nature. We'll talk more about that later. I will post her website for anybody who's got specific questions and wants to be able to get in touch with her later. I'll post that a little later in the presentation. Just to catch everybody up, we obviously we're doing an intro to fruit tree pruning today. Coming up next week, we've got organic rose care. That'll be with Suzanne Bontempo and Charlotte Canner from Our Water, Our World. That'll be a really interesting class. That one will include a lot of info that's extremely pertinent right now, just because it is talking about roses and everything that's about to be hang on, let me change. Can I change? Hey Elizabeth, we've got your screen on.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So it's got some interesting information coming up about rose care. I'm sorry about that, Elizabeth. I know you're trying to get everything ready to roll. We've also got an intro to rose pruning that's coming right after that. So the organic rose care is on Wednesday the 2nd, and then rose pruning is on Saturday the 5th. Again, really timely as we are working on roses, and a lot of roses are available in all of our stores. All of our dormant roses are available in our stores. So that is a perfect timing for everything right now. Coming up after that, again, we get Elizabeth back for Learning to Prune Japanese Maples. That's on February 9th. That'll be amazing. Again, that's a class that I've seen before. I actually, if you have had an opportunity to be in one of Elizabeth's classes in person, it really is something. And hopefully one day we'll get back to that. But really just a complete and total wealth of information. On February 12th, we've got How to Mount Orchids, Bromeliads, and Tillandsias. Paul Bourbain, might be saying his name wrong, forgive me, of the SF Orchid Society is going to be back with us. He came before probably a month or two ago, and his webinar on how to take care of and how to repot orchids, I was blown away. Orchids are something that I have struggled with in the past, and so I was so excited to have to be able to be a part of that webinar. And I recommend it all the time when people come into the stores and ask very specific questions about orchids. I always, recommend him and recommend watching that webinar, because it's just such again, questions answered, everything on repotting, how to water, kind of how to everything. So the fact that he's coming back is huge. If you guys are into orchids, you should absolutely not miss that class. Again, it is on February 12th at 10 a.m. Amazing information. And then on the 16th, organic houseplant care, Suzanne is going to come back from Our Water, Our World and talk about how to take care of houseplants organically. We've got identifying weeds coming up on February 19th at 10. Another really good one. I mean, it's hard to tell now what is a weed and what is, some plant that is maybe, been donated by our squirrel friends, and maybe it's something you want to hang out, and maybe it's going to be invasive. So how to identify that is huge. So we're really excited about that. Then rounding out February, looks like Eating Well from a Small Food Garden with Pam Pierce on February 26th at 10 a.m. How cool would it be to just be able to shop in your own backyard? I know that takes us back to olden days, and it's not an option for all of us anymore, but how cool to be able to do as much of it as you possibly can. And then we're moving into eco-friendly remedies for gophers, moles, and voles is going to start out March on the 2nd. We've got a lot of stuff planned. If you guys have not looked at the website, definitely do. There are classes galore taking us all through the spring. It should be a really interesting time coming up. Lots of information as we get all of our gardens and stuff ready for the springtime. Okay, so I feel like that's enough kind of back information. I am Shannon Fitzpatrick, super late, sorry, from the Pleasant Hill store, and really excited to be introducing you and hosting you through this webinar this morning. If there's any questions, please put them in the Q&A. I will do everything that I can to answer all of them. We've got a lot of people joined on today. We're going to have tons of information, so I'm going to hurry up and shut my mouth. But like I said, if you have any questions, definitely post them in the Q&A. I will answer what I can, and then we'll save all the goodies for Elizabeth. She does have a slideshow that she's going to be going through, so definitely keep up. We will post everything as usual. I think it's by Tuesday of next week. It should all be posted. There'll be links on the website. It'll take you over to YouTube, where most of our webinars are listed there. And let's just get started. So Elizabeth Ruiz from Go With Nature, and again, I will definitely post her website as soon as we get going on here. Thanks so much, you guys. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Shannon. Yes, and I actually wanted to add, I was looking at the Sloat's website yesterday, and they have like questions that people had done, and they are organized according with the items. So for example, they have citrus questions, they have fruit tree questions. And so there are a lot of those questions that you guys may have today. So you can also go to that website. So just to introduce myself, I have been doing pruning for more than 10 years. And so a little bit of what we are gonna be talking here is according with my experience. I have only like a super limited amount of time to get you guys kind of like give you a general understanding of fruit tree pruning. And the other thing I want to say is, even though citrus are fruit trees, we are not going to talk about them today, just because one, we have another seminar coming for citrus pruning, and two, because they react different and they don't supposed to be pruned right now. Right now, you are gonna see a lot of the citrus fully put in the major production, and we are not harvesting yet because it's too early to harvest. Lemons, for example, are gonna be in between like harvesting and flowering, so it's really not the time to do it. That is why we have it for later on in early spring. So please, the citrus questions, maybe we can postpone them for that seminar. Rather than that, we're gonna be talking about the rest of the fruit tree pruning. So now I'm gonna share my screen and show you a little bit about, so the slideshow. What I do a little bit with the slideshow is I get in and out the slideshow so I can zoom in and show you branches and stuff like that. So it gets a little bit inappropriate, I will say, or not so professional, but it helps me to zoom in whatever I want to show. So what you are gonna learn or you are gonna see today is what I have gathered with the experience. So I may go against the flow, what you guys know from before, but if you follow kind of like the instructions, you are gonna be able to have like fruits and contain trees or fruits that grow and develop nicely. So just believe me. So the first thing that I want to show is how to prune young trees. So the first case that we are going to be talking right now is the case of you got your bare roots. So you have here examples of bare roots, 3 different examples. This one is just the stick, the trunk. This one is developed, and this one is a little bit more branches. The reason why I show these ones is because I want you, when you get bare root systems, I want you to identify few things. One is how thick your trunk is. If it's like, you know, the diameter is just like a finger thick of diameter, we are seeing that the tree is in the thinner side, on the weaker side. We also want to look at the graft, which is this one here, that is at this point. So we want to look at that graft. We don't want to plant this graft under the soil, so we don't want to put soil on them. We don't want to put mulch on that. The 3 examples should also show us the strength of the plant that you just got. So in this case, this is the weakest one, and this is the strongest one. You can do, you know, I put here optional because planting and pruning is something that you do, you can do, but it's not necessarily. So sometimes when I get things that are too skinny, they are not even like a finger, my big thumb thick. So then sometimes I say to my client, you know, you just plant it, leave it a year, and then we do the pruning. When they are like thick like that, then I can do the planting and pruning. So the whole concept is that you get from the soil level and you cut 18 inches above the ground. But because we are developing grafts that are a little bit higher than, you know, than before, so what I put here is find your graft, and from your graft point, so you are gonna go up 18 inches, and that could be your general rule. That is your general rule. The other way that I do it is I see how big I want my tree to grow, and then I decide how low I want my branches to be, and that will be the most the usual way I do it. I usually ask, how big do you want your tree? And if they say 5 feet tall, so then I say, okay, so let's start with our branches to be 1.5 feet away from the ground. If they say, well, I want it to just grow and be 15 feet tall, 20 feet tall, so then I say, okay, so then maybe we do a tree that you can actually, you know, have 3 feet from the ground up. So that totally depends. Okay, so now when we do the case 2, is instead of doing just cutting 18 inches above the graft. So what I do is I do the planting, and I usually do this with strong trees like that. So I have a lot of branches developed. The branches are thick. It's not like this one that they were thin, and I want them to be thick. And then I am cutting my budget for cutting a young tree that is planted, newly planted. So it can be 50% to 70%. What do I mean with the budget? The budget is how much you can cut out of your tree. The younger the tree, the vigorous the tree, the stronger you can go with your tree in the pruning, in the first few years of the pruning to set up that main scaffolds. So you can go 75%, 75%, you can go 50%. So in this case, I will say we went 75%. So I cut a major section in my tree, and then I cut the branches down. So the structural pruning I did, I am gonna talk about structural pruning, and that means I'm cutting the main scaffolds. So then my structural pruning in this case is the green cut, and then I have the reduction of the branches. that are the purple cuts I did. So pretty much I cut the branches in half. So I cut, actually, I would say a little bit more than 75%. I cut maybe 80% of the tree. So if you are gonna do this, usually I do this for trees that I'm gonna try to grow strong and tall. And the reason is because the stronger you cut, the stronger the reaction is gonna be. And that is why fruit trees, that is why you do this with fruit trees and fruit trees only. So that is the two cases for planting bare root or planting a new planting tree. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, put it in the answers, and then we will get to in the questions, and we will get to them. So then from this point of planting that pruning at the planting, so then we go to, okay, you want to also think about your training systems. Usually we talk about training systems with the fruit trees because it helps people to understand a little bit how those main scaffolds need to work. And I don't usually go to my clients and talk about training systems, but I realize that training systems really paint a picture for people to understand things. So usually I explain two of them. There are many, but these two gives a really good idea. So we have the open center that you are gonna have your trunk. It can be a delay open center, means these major branches are gonna be higher up. The trunk is gonna be longer. And then you're gonna cut the center, and then you're gonna develop these main scaffolds. So usually and usually these are done for like a lot of the stone fruits. Stone fruits, I'm talking about like the cherries, the ones that have the main seed, the big seed in the center, and then the flash. So cherries, apricots, peaches, plums. I use that also for the figs, and the reason why we use this one is because it's easier to control. The tree is gonna grow a lot, those trees grow a lot, and then you are able to control the height and also have light coming inside easier. So the things that you wanna be aware of is you wanna have three. So here I put 3 to 5 main scaffolds. These are your main scaffolds. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. I put 3 to 5. I will say the stronger the tree grows, so Santa Rosa plums or maybe apricots, I usually go into putting 3. And maybe figs, I put 4. Maybe if I use it for apples, I put 5. So pretty much the stronger the tree grows, the less main scaffolds I'm gonna have. And it's gonna give me more opportunity to have more fruit closer to my main scaffolds. And it's not gonna be, I'm not gonna have a lot of the breakings and stuff, branches breaking and stuff like that. So you're gonna have 3 to 5 main scaffolds. When you are having, so let's say that this is a small plant, they end up looking they end up looking like a multi-trunk tree. When the trunk is really short, let's say that is the 18 inches above the ground, it ends up looking like a multi-trunk tree. So in the case, the other thing that you want to be aware, and this is actually pretty important and it can get confused, and that's why I mark it here. So here it says, well, the first one is you want to have your branches kind of like going well distributed around the trunk. So in this case, I have my branches where I have a space in between them. I will say maybe I will remove this branch from here, so I will have enough space as well here, especially if this is my sunny side. This is the part that is gonna grow a lot. So I actually have like try to leave a lot of space in the sunny side areas for the branches to develop branchlets, and that is what I want. So my main scaffolds are less, and then the branchlets is what is gonna start giving me the fruit. Then the other thing that we have to be aware when we are doing the training of our young trees is those main scaffolds. You don't want my main scaffolds, you don't want the main scaffolds to be all of them in the same height at the same point. If you can, you want to have a distance of 4 to 6 inches between the main scaffolds. So what I am doing this so I can show you what I mean. So what I mean is this section here, that is what you want to be 6 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches. Give it a lot of space. The bigger the tree is, the more space you want between these branches. I know that is right. You are gonna go around the tree, so there is not that they are going one on top of the other one. But what happens is when you have when all the branches are growing at the same point, that part, if one gets sick, so then you have to cut right at the trunk, and then it becomes like that open wound in that section, and that is when diseases can come through your main trunk. That's not what you want. So that is why I put that there. And then when you are selecting the scaffolds, which this is also really important, you want to select the scaffolds that are 45 to 65 degree angles. And what that means? I mean is, you see how these angles are? So this is a good angle. This is like a 45 degree angle. This is a little bit more open. You actually want to have that little curve here, like this little curve here is really nice to have. You don't want branches that go this high or this high, you see? The angles are really sharp. So what is going to happen is this is going to keep going up. We want angles that are a little bit more open for the main scaffolds. So that end up looking a little bit like that. With time, the main scaffolds, because of the weight of the fruit, start becoming more horizontal, which is fine. The more horizontal, the more they're going to produce. So just be aware that those are the 3 things that you want to keep in mind when you are doing your training systems. This training system, the open center, you want to have like 3 to 5 scaffolds. The less, the better, actually. Well, no 1, but 3 is good. You want to have your 4 to 6 inches spacing between the attachments of the branches to the trunk. So not all the branches wants to be in the same point. And then you want to have your 45 to 65 degrees. Okay, so the other training system, and this one I'm going to leave it like that too, because I want to go close up. So usually this one is used for apples, pears, persimmons. So what you do is you have, and you can go from this point to generating a central leader. And you're gonna, you cut the leader, yes, you cut the leader, but at the same time, because you cut so much, you cut 80% of your tree, what is gonna happen is you're gonna have things growing right from that green point that I just cut, and you are gonna develop that leader. So that is why this leader, for example, is the perfect example here. Is the perfect example that they cut the leader, and anyway, something grew right up. So you can always cut the leader if it's growing too much and re-leader. So that means because the pruning is done so hard, a lot of the times you have one branch going up, and that is gonna be your re-leader. So I usually have the central leaders for all these apples, pears, persimmons. Why? Because they actually don't grow as strong as the stone fruits, and because your spurs, the spurs is where the fruit is produced. Your spurs last a little longer. Pretty much, it can be 5 to 8 years. Some of them are to 15 years, which is a lot, but 8 years. So you can just have your tree small without having to prune so much. Again, these ones you want to have good angles of attachment. You want to have the same 45 to 65 degree angles. And then what else to say about these ones? Yeah, this one is going to look a little bit more like a normal tree, pretty much. So here are some of the examples of a plant that was recently planted, and then we are cutting it. Right as we planted. So the close up. What I want to show you is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 branches. We have 10 branches in this one, and we cut and left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches. I will have cut a little bit more. I will have cut this branch here, but we didn't have anything in this space. My client was kind of like, oh, let's just do that. So I will have left these 4 and cut to this branch, the closest. So I will cut right here, and I will have done that. And this is a plum. And the other thing I will have done is cut a little bit these branches. All of them, usually what I do is with an open center, I cut all the branches kind of like at the same height. So I give them I say, okay, you guys are all at the same level. There is not a leader in here when you cut them at the same level. In this case, my client was kind of like, oh my God, you're cutting too much. I paid for this tree, so I just did the one cut. Later on, I'm gonna come and reduce it. So the other example I wanna show you here is this. Start with this one, number 1. And the number 1, what I wanna show you is, instead of, this is what I say about being inappropriate. But I just want to get the close up. So in this case, when I want to show you these ones, instead of pruning, you can actually, because when the trees are young, they have the tendency to grow really high up and not having that angle. This plant has a really nice structure because it has that little curve here that we want. The only thing that I would say is, this still needs some pruning. You can do that, but I will do a pruning anyway. So what I will do, I will reduce the branches to, for example, here, to the points that they are curving up. And if I cut this one here, I'm gonna cut all these sections of the tops at the same height. I will also cut branches that are growing in. So these are branches that are growing in. I don't wanna have all these branches that are growing in. I will cut them. In a first year and second year tree, I will cut those branches for sure. The other thing I will cut is something like these little branches in a first, second, and third year old tree, even in a fifth, they are not gonna do anything. They are too little to produce fruit because they are just too skimpy, I think is the word, like not so strong. So the strongest branches are the ones that I'm gonna cut, and I'm gonna start, I want the fruit to start producing. So all these little ones that are not gonna give me anything, I'm gonna cut them in winter. And why I cut them? Because like that, the energy is put to the other branches that I leave. And that is why in winter, we do that. Now, this is an apple. Those are 2 apples. So remember, if you just want to spread the branches out instead of cutting them, you can do that, but you have to do some pruning in that section. Also, the pruning, the cutting of the branches, the reducing, and I will show that later, also produce this tree to branch out and produce branchlets. So that is the one thing that you want in your fruit trees. You want to have a little bit more branches. The branchlets, not in the structural, but in the branchlets. So that is where the fruit is going to be produced. And then this is the other part I wanted to show you, is sometimes when you have a tree that you are actually wanting to grow tall. So then in this case, you can, and it's a central leader like this one. So then in that case, you could have a set of main scaffolds at the bottom, and then you have maybe like a foot and a half or two, and then you start your second set of scaffolds. And so then this is a tree that is going to be tall. That's why the person didn't want to cut them, the height. I know that is kind of like counterintuitive, but it actually needs to be pruned for it to grow stronger. But anyway, the part that I wanted to show you is that main scaffolds are here, and then you have the space, and then you start your other main scaffolds in the upper section. That works really well. In here, I have one that when I want to show you with this gala is the example of a tree that I want to keep maybe like to be 5 feet tall maximum. So what I'm gonna do is I do my planting. I have my scaffolds. I don't know if you can see it, but in here you have 4 main scaffolds. So in this case, and these main scaffolds were cut already. So I'm gonna like leave my main scaffolds there. They are perfectly located and everything. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut that major thing. I'm gonna cut it and maybe just leave 2 at the top, and maybe cut this one right here, so I can have these 2 in at the same height. So why I do that? I want to reduce it. I also want to give, you see how strong the top is? If I let my top being strong, so then my little branches here are gonna get weaker. So I am actually doing 2 things. I am containing the tree in the height, but by reducing it strong, I'm also kind of like saying, okay, I'm gonna contain you. I need you to give these branches the opportunity to also develop. Okay, so those are my examples for the young trees. So remember, the young trees, you are gonna have, you're gonna prune only 1 time a year. The 1 time you're pruning is in winter, and you are not worrying about little things and fruits or anything. You're just worrying about generating the main structure. That's it. So now we go with mature trees. And look at this. I'm not actually talking about specific trees. And the reason why I'm not talking specific trees is because if you do this, that I'm gonna show, like that I have been showing you, the structure, the main scaffolds. So then you are gonna, and if you do it like in a regular, like every year you prune your trees, you are gonna have fruit. You don't have to worry about what type of tree it is, and you are gonna have a healthy tree. So pruning a mature tree. So the first step of pruning a mature tree. So this is a mature tree. You can see it's grown. It has the main scaffolds, everything. It can be a plum. It can be a persimmon. It can be an apple. It can be anything. So the first thing that you wanna think is why you are reducing your tree, and that may sound silly, but it's actually pretty important. Because if I go to your house, that is the first thing I'm gonna ask. Why you, or even when you call me, why you think that your tree needs pruning is my first question. And then I know if they say, oh, it just grew too big, I cannot reach the fruit, or it's just, I cannot even see through, or my fruit is not growing. So then I know what I need to do. So not always you are gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna show you. So if you want to do reduction, if you want a tree to grow, but it's just too crowded, so then you do thinning, all depends. So the first thing that you're going to do, actually physically do when you are going to approach your tree, is cut the 3Ds, dead, disease, and damage, and you're going to cut them. And if you don't know how to, I will show you when I end up, I show you how you can recognize your dead. If it's broken, is damaged, so you're gonna cut it. no matter if it's still alive, cut it. Because this is gonna have weight, you know, like fruit trees get really heavy. So you wanna have scaffolds that can hold the fruit. So the first thing that you're gonna cut is dead disease and damage. Then you're gonna go with, okay, how do I look at my tree? So when I go to your house, the tree is looking like that. And people say, how do you know where to cut? So this is the answer. Look at your main scaffolds. So I draw in yellow your main scaffolds. And that is what I look at the beginning. I'm not looking at the little thing. I'm not looking at the little branches. It's not the first thing I do after cutting the dead disease and damage. The first thing I do is I go and I look at the scaffolds. I start from the trunk and I start see how the scaffolds are growing. So I see there is a problem here. There are two scaffolds encouraging in each other, and this is gonna be a crowded situation. I have another one here that is growing, and I have another one here that is growing. That is gonna be another crowded situation. I have another one crossing here. And so now I know what are my first cuts. And my first cuts usually are the biggest ones, just because, well, I know how to look at the tree and it's gonna resolve a lot of my problems. So if you don't know how to look at your tree, so then you can go with other cuts. But I do want you to learn to look at your tree. So I start from the trunk and I go branch by branch, seeing how they flow, see where they go, see the space that they have to grow. So I can see that it has here and then here, so then there is no space. Or this one that is kind of like growing there, so there is a problem. So then what I'm gonna do, of course, I'm gonna cut or this one or this one. I'm gonna cut or this one or this one. And how do I know which one to cut? Well, with the first step, what do I want from my tree? Usually I give the example, I'm gonna use this example because usually people want your trees to be shorter. So what do I want with my tree? I want my tree to be reduced. I am not being able to reach my branches. So in that case, that branch that was going up is the one I'm gonna cut, because I know that I want remove that problem of having a crossing branches here, and I already removed the problem of height. So one of my cuts, which is the red one, my structural cuts are the red one in this drawing. So I am gonna cut this one. So I remove all that. The yellow one is the branch that was crossing. So you can see here too. So then my other one is here, and these two branches that I had before. You remember these two branches. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna cut the one that is going up. In this case, I'm cutting the one that is going up is because I know I have a branch here. I have good spacing between branches, and usually the branches that are growing up are the strongest ones. So anything that is growing up is growing up like up vertically are branches that are strong in the growth and a little bit of less producers. The more horizontal the branch is, the more the best production is gonna have. So in this case, in this example, I can bet you this is the one that is gonna produce the most, because it's more horizontal and I have a lot of more branchlets to produce a lot of more fruit. And this can be for apples, pears, persimmons, all that stuff. So I am cutting the one that is growing up and interfering. So right now I have nice spacing between these three. And then this one, because it's a horizontal branch I like, not all of the structural pruning means I have to remove it. So I'm just gonna reduce in length. So I did 3 cuts and this is what I have right now. So I still have a lot of crowdedness and stuff. I still have to deal with the things, and I did a hole. Oh my God, I did a hole. It's okay. Usually with a structural pruning, you're gonna make some holes, but it's because it's the first step, it's okay. So the second thing that we're gonna do is now, let me just go back. From this one, I'm gonna say, okay, now I have to reduce in height. I did my structure looks really good and clean and organized and everything. Nothing is touching, nothing is crowding, nothing is nothing. So now I am gonna do my height. Before I start with my height, I select the height I want. So let's say this is my height. So I go visually with my eye and see, can I reduce it? Can I reduce it all the way? And I say, yes, I can reduce it. This one, I have a lot of branches that I can reduce in here. So then I go with reducing. So in this case, to reduce it, you can see how tall the old tree was. And now I have my small tree, and now I don't have a hole, and I don't have like an open center looking thing. I have actually everything looking nice. So these are my structural prunings I did. Well, I actually went a little bit further after. And then these are my heights. So to reducing height, I do few things. I am cutting to a branchlet. So the first thing that you're gonna do is always cut to something. If you learn about this class, learn two things. Learn to look at your structure and learn to cut to something. So cutting to something, what that means, you're gonna cut to a bud. So when you cut to, you're gonna cut, you decide, okay, well, this is the bud I want, I will cut it here. So there are some cuts that they were like just a stick, and then I went and cut, well, I cut to a bud. So what it's gonna do is gonna produce more growth. It's gonna branch out. So when I have like a spindly growth, I reduce it, I cut to a bud, and this is gonna produce branchlets. So that is one of the things I did. So I did it here. Now, the other thing I can do is I always cut to something, so I can cut to a branchlet. So in this case, I cut it here and I cut to this branchlet. And then I reduce to a bud and I reduce to a bud. In this one, the same situation. This was the whole branch. I cut to a branchlet. So I'm always cutting to something. And what the cutting to something do is I am telling this branch to get stronger and develop. I am saying go up if I cut to this one. If I cut to that one, I will have say go more horizontal. So the branch is gonna grow here instead of growing up. So it helps me when I cut to something and is a branchlet. I am actually really training the tree. I'm telling the tree, this is what I want you to do. And it actually does what I want the tree to do, unless that there is something like, well, I'm gonna cut here and there is a lower branch that is way stronger. So then in that case, I didn't calculate it right. But what I want you to understand is you can actually train your tree to go one way or the other one if you select the branches right. So you can see that the cuts are pretty close to the branch I want. And I can go, and then you can go with the little cuts everywhere. There is this one way, and then the other way is thinning. It's actually thinning, because sometimes it gets to be, especially at the top, it gets to be so crowded that you don't want to do a lot of these little cuts. You actually want to go with thinning. So instead of reducing, this is the same branch, example of the same branch, done in the two different ways. So in this case, then start reducing and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 cuts. What I do is I do one cut and I leave the other ones how they are. So I reduce it, I thin it out, I give it more space to the plant. Maybe you can cut it here, and that will just make a balanced branch. And what I like to do, so usually at the bottom, I do this because I'm generating more and I want all these little branches to grow. So this will be this branch. And at the top, I go with more thinning like this. So it open up and I have more light going through the top, because the top is the one that is gonna grow stronger and it gets crowded. And the lower section is weaker and it's usually kind of thinner. So that is what you want to do. So now, to develop our spurs is something that you want to do, for example, apples and pears. So let me show you what a spurs is, first of all. A spurs is the place where, this is the spelling, this is the place where the fruit will develop. So that is the flower and that is where the fruit will develop. So there are different spurs for every tree, you can see. The one thing is that is kind of like common is I did these groups to show you, for example, the fruit trees that don't have spurs. So the plums usually don't have spurs. They look like that. There's a grouping of bunch of flowers on it. And the apricot, there is the flowers and the leaf bud. So they are like 2 leaf buds and the flowers. And they last usually 1 year. These ones, the plums, the plums last 2 years and then they are done producing. So that is why you have the plums produce in the last year and the year before the year before spurs. In these ones, the apples, the pears, some of the cherries, and the Japanese plum, the spurs produce a little longer. The Japanese plum, they don't grow as tall as the other plums. So you will have, if you don't know which one do you have, if your plum just grow maybe, you know, like 1.5 feet every year, so no, you know that is a Japanese plum, most probably, because plums will grow, you know, 4 to 6 feet a shoot in a year. So if it's a Japanese plum, so then this is the spurs, and it is really easy to identify. You have lots of little flower buds coming out. The apple, this is the apple. The apples is the same thing like that. It's really wrinkly, and it has your flowers bud are really thick. Usually flowers bud are kind of like thick. And they are not usually at the ends. So the bud that you see at the end is a vegetative bud that is so ready to grow. That is not a flower bud. They are the only thick flower bud, the only thick vegetative buds. So it's gonna grow in vegetative growth, branches, shoots, no flowers. This is the pear, the same thing. So you see how wrinkled it is. This one is not so, you cannot see wrinklish, but usually the spurs get really wrinkled. And this is the cherry. So that is the spurs. How do you develop a spurs? It's easy. When you have a shoot, so then you cut it. Usually, like, these are really good for apples. And what is the other one that is really good for pears? I go and cut it to 2 to 3 branches. So if 2 to 3 buds. In this case, I use 2 buds. So this is my growth for the whole year of 2020. So then I go and leave 2 to 3 buds. And then that is the last year. And this is what happened in the 2021. So in the 2021, the pink is the growth. I go and reduce it again. And then this green one at the 2022, this green one is gonna start producing the spurs. So that purple thing that you see there is the spurs. And why it's gonna go all the way? Because in some apples will produce the spurs in the 3-year-old wood. It's not 3-year-old plant, it's the 3-year-old wood. So the green one is where the first spurs are gonna be. And then you're gonna have the spurs in the next one and in the next one. So what happened with this one is having those little branches so close and generating that spur so close is gonna have a branch that like I call it like a fruiting wood, because I don't let it develop longer, like in length. I just keep it short and I keep my spurs growing close to the trunk or close to the main branch. And that is how I develop spurs in apples, especially like the smaller apples and stuff like that. So these are the don'ts. And I put this here because sometimes I see this. So first of all, the topping. Even though if you don't top, my main idea here, even if this is a plum, is you don't want to just cut them all the way like you did around the thing. Yes, of course, but you didn't thin out. You didn't work in your structure. You want to select some of those and cut out. So even if you want to reduce your tree and you don't have anything to cut to, because I guess they didn't, so then in that case, you have to do that, but at least thin out the inside. This is another topping that they did, that they actually thin out the inside. I still think that, you know, some people ask me, can you reduce this 10 feet? You know, I'm like, yes, I can do it. I will do it in 3 years, in 5 years, and I will not have to do this. The other one I have is this one. These are cuts that will, like, these are not good cuts because you're cutting to nothing. So when I say cut to something and you're cutting to a bud, what happens is you also have to think in the transition. How thick is my trunk or my branch and where I'm gonna cut? Because what, maybe there was a bud here or a bud here. Here there are 2 buds and they cut to the bud. Well, the transition is too big, and what is you're gonna get out of this is growth like that. And this growth is gonna give you bad attachments. So with the weight of the fruit, it's gonna break. So you're gonna have an open wound for the rest of the tree life. You're gonna have diseases. You're gonna lose your hard wood in the inside. Those are all the things that you don't want. And then your branches are gonna be weak. They are not gonna be able to hold, or with the weight of the fruit, they are just gonna break. So those are your don'ts. Your do's is fertilizing. A lot of the people don't know, but fertilizing in fall is a really good idea. Fertilizing fall is great for a lot of trees. Things that, why? Because in fall, the tree is putting the energy in the root system. So you're gonna have all that energy from all the fertilizing getting into the root system and being stored. So it's really important, if you are having a tree that is weak and it's not growing that much, fertilize it in fall. Epsom salts in winter. Epsom salts in winter are really good for flower production. For every tree. I actually experimented with all of them and it works. So you can put it in every fruit tree. Summer pruning. I do summer pruning in mature apples and pears. And espalier apples and pears, or espalier whatever. Summer pruning is really good for cutting that current year growth that is done in summer. So like that, the fruit gets some of the sunlight, thinning out the tree. So if you have a tree that it gets really crowded and the fruit is just staying small, so do summer pruning. In the summer pruning, I also do a little bit of that fruit thinning. If I have a tree, like a lot of the stone fruit, like apricots, pears, peaches, are showing disease, are showing like cankers, oozing, the trunk looks black and it gets this dripping looking thing. So do not cut in winter. Cut as soon as it harvests. And it's gonna produce. It's gonna be harder pruning because you cannot see, yes, but it is gonna, you are not gonna lose production. It actually increase the production, and what it does is you have those open wounds when the tree is, when it's dry, because a lot of these cankers and bacteria and stuff like that, it sprays by, with water. So you want to avoid having open wounds in water. I use copper when I prune my fruit trees in winter. I prune them, and I go and spray with copper where the cuts are. It's really important that you spray right at the cut. And I do that for this one. The only plant that I don't use copper is the apricots. They don't like it. I don't know what that means really, because since I read it, I never use it. I have not had an apricot tree that I will be willing to try, or my client willing to try, because it says everywhere, do not put copper in apricots. And, you know, I'll compost to the ground because it helps for the microbes. That is a really important thing to do. So now, products. I have my Epsom salt, of course. You can put Epsom salt anytime. I usually put it in winter because it dissolves itself. The plants I have here, my favorite fertilizers, and I am going to talk a little bit about them in the sense of, let me just get out so I can zoom in. So what I want you to look is that the numbers. So we have here a 555. I have it here for two reasons. Because it's an even number, so this fertilizer is good to put it any time of the year. It helps for the flower production, for the growth, for everything. I like this one because it says that it has the humic acid for the beneficial microbes. One of the things that we want to learn about our soils is the fungi and microbes are actually really, really important for the soil, and for the that's what it helps the things decompose and plants taking those nutrients. So any organic fertilizer that says that is the one I'm going. For this one, what I like about this one is that you actually know what they use. So this doesn't have any of the, it doesn't say anything about mycorrhizae or anything like that. But it actually, you know what they put in the fertilizer. So this is one of my favorite fertilizers actually. Then the other one I use a lot is this one for if your plant is growing but it's not producing fruits. So then I use Ultra Bloom. So you have like 5 years planted tree and these 5 years and it's not producing anything. Start putting Ultra Bloom in fall. It's not gonna give you nitrogen growth, it's gonna give you a lot of the other ones. And then this one, I like it because here is say the mycorrhizae. So I do like to have fertilizers that say that it includes mycorrhizae. That means that fungi thing that makes that bed of little white fibers. It is well known that helps the tree get the moisture out of the soil. So right now, that is a really good thing to have, especially with, you know, our dry weathers.
Hey, Elizabeth, can I interrupt you really quickly before you move on from the products? You had talked about the copper and Epsom salt. With the copper, is it the copper fungicide as a spray, or is it some kind of, or is it like you know, some kind of granular that you sprinkle down? I see that with the Epsom salt. I guess the question really is the dilution rate, because Epsom salt is not, you know, the first known use of Epsom salt is not for trees and for planting. Is there a rate that you should use the Epsom salt, you know, so that you're not hurting it? I would just imagine that it's probably not on the package of, hey, if you're using this for, you know, fruit trees and your feet, you know, do this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, totally. Yeah, Epsom salts, usually what I do is if I am putting, so the way I find out about Epsom salts was because I take baths of Epsom salts in winter. Sure. So instead of throwing that away, I start putting it in my plants. And all my plants, my citrus trees will be, from yellow, we became really green, produce a lot of flowers. And so I was using diluted Epsom salt because it was from my bud to the plant. The other way that I say to people is, if you're gonna put it, is I usually just grab like a handful, and according with how big the tree is, so then I put 2 handfuls and I just throw it in the ground around, you know, like the root system, to the feeders, how you put a fertilizer. Sure. So you're gonna go like a foot away from the trunk, and then you're gonna put your fertilizer around that, the tree line.
So you can just throw it down like the granular.
Yeah, like the granular. Yeah.
Okay, and then with the copper, is it the liquid version? Is it like copper fungicide that you're talking about, or is it a different type of copper that you mean in terms of use for fruit trees?
Oh yeah, so the copper is the spray, which I actually didn't put here, but it is. So usually I use the liquid spray. is blue. It's a blue
Right.
thing, and I buy them like these ones.
Right.
They are like red,
The
like
concentrate.
yeah, the concentrate,
Right.
and I dilute it. And the
Okay.
reason why excuse me.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
Okay. The reason why I use the diluter is because I sometimes when the trees are really sick, I go a little bit harder with the copper. Or if I know that there is a disease around the house, so I put a little bit more than suggested in the bottle.
Got it.
Yeah, so and you want to go right, you're gonna spray your whole tree. It's gonna look like it just rained. That is how much copper you want to put. So
Okay.
that's why I go with concentrate.
Okay, perfect. Thank
yeah.
you.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just wanted to catch those two because the Epsom salt, like I said, I've heard you say that before, but I wasn't sure whether to, dilute it like you would anything else, or whether you should, or whether you, like you just said, just kind of sprinkle it around like it was a normal, granular fertilizer. So no, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I have here the few sprays I actually use, and I'm gonna start. Well, actually, I wanted to put it in order, but I didn't have the time. But anyway, neem oil. I do use neem oil for some pests, controlling pests, and is good. The thing about neem oil is that neem oil and copper is that they do affect the bees. In this sense, it's not like they are killing the bees, but when you put neem oil and if the plant is flowering and the bee touch the neem oil or the copper, the bee gets like particles in their bodies. And what happens is when they go to the colony, they say, no, dude, you smell kind of weird. And they don't let them go in the colony. So that is one of the things that experts about bees are saying. Neem oil and copper, if you are spraying with them, don't spray when there are flowers on the plant. Or yeah, so like that, when the bees will not go there. But neem oil, I use it a lot for pests. Then I have the organoside. That is one that it says that it's bee safe, so I use it. The only thing about this one is an insecticide, a fungicide. So it doesn't kill bacteria, but it's a fungicide and miticide. So you do have for a little bit of that powdery mildew, you have to spray your insects with it. Is not a how do you call it? It's not a long extended protection, so you wanna spray more often, so you follow the instruction. Usually they say, well, for a scale, you spray and then you spray in 2 weeks and then you spray in another 2 weeks or something like that. Or thrips, you spray every week. So you have to spray a little bit more often, and it wash out with the rain, but it is a little bit safer for the environment. The same thing with capital jack. Capital jack is exactly the same thing. So a lot of people like to use more powerful sprays, but more long-lasting and powerful sprays. They kill more insects. So that is one of the things that we have to be aware. So usually I try to suggest these two sprayers when it comes to pests and fungicides. I try to do these two. The other one that I have here is this one. This one is a really strong, it's actually everything. It kills bacteria, it helps for like the cankers, it helps for the oozing in the plants, it does the verticillium. So it's a really strong and it's a long lasting one. So I put it here because we do have some plants that we have to spray when they are sick. And what I am trying to say is if I have to spray something, so then this one I use. And it actually says a wide range. That means it will kill a lot of things. So just be aware of that. This one also say that you can put it in the soil. I usually suggest people to spray the tree in winter with it instead of put it in the soil, unless that you have like a bacteria or a fungal disease in the soil. Don't use it like it's a systemic. It's done usually a systemic, and it will kill a lot of the microbes in your soil that you don't want to kill, or like insect in your soil. So I put it here because it actually is useful for a lot of big diseases like the cankers, I am forgetting the word. They're like big diseases that you can use. Just read about it. It's just a really strong one. So I want to make sure that if you use it, this one, you use it with really careful and not that often. And do it for bacterial diseases or things that are really strong diseases that can kill your tree. So then use that one. Rather than that, pests, fungicides, or if you get powdery mildew, don't use this one. You can, but use something a little bit lighter. So that's my suggestions on the sprays.
Hey, Elizabeth, one more little quick question while you're still here at products. Two of the things that you mentioned, which are the oozing, and which product is best for oozing in your opinion?
So it will be this one. So
okay.
Because you said it's a canker, so usually it's a canker, so it's a bacterial. So then it will be this one.
Okay. And then also, what about scale? Scale is another one a couple people have asked about, and I've struggled with myself.
Yeah, so scale, I do the organocide.
Okay.
And if like if you have to put it often, or so for example, if they like I have a scale in a fruit tree,
okay,
so that it gets naked, so you can do neem oil.
Okay.
If it's something that is your fruit is there, you have to spray,
Right.
so then I will use this one.
Okay.
The organocide. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that will be, now we are ready for the Q&A.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I should have hung on a second then. Sorry about that. Let's get to our questions. We have, oh my gosh, a ton of questions. One of the repeaters is Espalier trees, and just kind of what are the differences in pruning, in thinning, in how to keep healthy Espalier versus what you've mentioned about just kind of normal size standard fruit trees.
Okay, so for the Espalier is like a system that you generate. So pretty much it's kind of flat, and you develop your branches more horizontal. And then, so you are going to use a lot of that Spurs production that I showed you. Let me show you again, just to keep. So you're going to use a lot of these, how to produce a Spurs. So you are cutting back to 2 to 3 nuts. Yeah. And then every year you keep cutting and and this is what your Espalier is going to produce the fruit, and that is going to be your let me see if I have anything here. No. And that is how you're going to produce fruit in such a small space. With the Espalier, what you're going to do is you're going to prune, like usually you prune in winter, and you prune in summer, and you prune in fall. You can have, or you prune in winter. You're gonna prune you can prune winter and summer, or you can put winter, summer, and fall, depending on how the tree is growing. So with the espalier, the winter you do your regular reducing the tops and going back to the main scaffolds for the height. In summer, you are gonna work your production, so the production of the, you are gonna do that. So instead of waiting for the next winter to prune that, you can do that in summer. So you let it grow in spring, you cut it in summer, and then you produce that in the same 2020.
Okay.
So and then in fall, what you do is you cut the branches. Let me see if I have a drawing here. So you will cut anything that is growing up from the branches. So in this case, anything that is growing up, if you have your horizontal branches, something that is growing up like that, you are gonna cut those and you're gonna reduce them, or you are gonna take them away. So and that is done in fall, because in fall your tree is not gonna grow from there.
Right.
So it's something that the reduction, you only do it in like the strong part of the plant, so it's the upper section.
Okay.
And like that is how you keep them without getting too strong at the top levels,
right,
and getting weaker in the lower levels.
Okay.
So pretty much you prune more often. That is
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Also, we have a lot of people that are asking specifically about pomegranates, and if there's what the differences are, if there are any, to pruning and the care of pomegranates versus the stone fruits that you've mentioned, as well as the apples and pears and that kind of thing. So are there any specifics that are different for pomegranates, or do you take everything that you've said about apples and pears and apply it to them? So just
So for the pomegranates, the thing is they are yes, you are gonna prune in winter. You can do the thinning in summer. But the one thing that is different about pomegranates is when you do a cut, any cut that you do, you're gonna have 5 shoots out of that cut that you did. No matter if you cut perfectly, no matter if you have good transitions, no matter if you cut to something or you cut to nothing, they are gonna produce a lot of shoots. So that is why pomegranates, usually I do my winter pruning and then I do a follow-up in summer, and I just thin out some of those stuffs. So pomegranates, I will say, they also they don't produce an spurs, so you are not gonna, it's like the plums, they are gonna grow, and from that new growth you have your production. And so that is the other thing that is different, for example, from apples and producing a spurs. You are not gonna do that. But I do have to say that with pomegranates, I still look at my structure. The first thing I do is look at my structure of the tree and simplify if I need to. And I do the same thing with the reduction. I cut to something. The only thing is that with the pomegranates, anything that you do is just, it's gonna produce a lot of growth. So if you are having a pomegranate that you actually have to keep shorter, I would say cut 2 times a year.
Okay, perfect. You also had mentioned with the use of the copper fungicide, maybe not to use it on apricot trees. Is that what we okay? Is there a reason behind that? Is there something different? Is it just the stone fruit in general, or apricots specifically?
Apricots only.
Okay.
Seems like apricots kind of burn from the copper. So yeah, I have not tried. How I say, I was kind of like, I always try when I say things, but that one I had not had a client that say, yeah, use my apricot to learn something.
Right. Okay, forgive me. There's so many questions. I just am trying to.
Well, while you look at the questions, I do have to say something that is,
Okay.
so I forgot from the products, I forgot to mention things like the compost. So I put there the grape seed compost. If you are gonna use a compost, that is my favorite compost. It doesn't smell like poop, which is good. It smells like a fermentation, so it does have a smell. It's really dark, and you can actually see the seeds in there. It's acidic, so a lot of the fruit trees actually like it. And now, because in, like, for example, in Marin County or in the Mill Valley, they are not allowed to use mulch. So I am actually suggesting people to use this compost as the mulch, because it helps for the nutrients, it helps for the nutrients, it helps for the microbes, and it gives that black look. So it is really dark.
Right. Is that's a specific type of compost or just compost in general?
Yeah, no, this is the grape seed compost.
Grape seed compost.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. And then also fig trees, anything different or more specific about fig trees versus what you said? I know that with fig trees, you often have a lot of branches that tend to kind of, go like, arch down. And is that part of the overall pruning process, that you want everything to go up, or is it okay if some of them are arching down with figs?
I am liking your question. So the thing is, yeah, fig trees are a little bit different because they do get a little bit more movement on the trunks. So when we are talking about having your 45-degree angles and going up branches, we are talking about main scaffolds, and that is for all the trees. Now, when we have branches that are going down, and that is for all fruit trees, for all the fruit trees, the branches that are going down naturally are actually really good at holding the fruit production. So those will gonna be the secondary branches. So it's okay if a secondary branch goes down and is producing the fruit in the bottom. So the difference between the apple and the fig, well, the fig is gonna produce it for 1 year, and next year the fruit is not gonna be there because they don't produce spurs. So for the apple, if I have those branches going down, my apple branch is gonna be producing fruit at the same point. It already has that structure that is able to hold the weight, and it's not gonna break. So with the fig, you can let it produce and then start getting it grow up. And why with the fig we wanna make it grow up? Because the fig needs to grow, and like that, the more growth it has fruit in the first, so the fig produce two times. The first growth, the first production is in the last year growth, and the second production is in the same year growth. So what happened is, you do want to start, when I do my pruning, I get the tree to go up again, because I need that new growth to be stronger. And so like that, I have my old and my new. Like, sorry, my new and my old. And like that, I can reduce it and I still have the two productions. If the branch is going down, the branches that grow down grow less. So
wow, it's funny, you see all these trees and orchards and stuff, especially here in California, and it's so interesting to find out excuse me, that there's so much that goes into healthy and like good producing fruit trees. Just the whole idea of that, when you were saying you had a client that wanted you to, it's getting too big, I want to cut it way back, and you're saying, yeah, no problem, over the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's a really interesting point, is that you can't just go from this ginormous tree down to the perfect size, like in one pruning without really hurting it. And that whole idea of, you know, kind of 3 to 5 year wood and how you slowly prune things back just as things slowly grow, the idea of giving it some time to cut it back so that it doesn't go into shock. It is it's going to be definitely a lesson in patience for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is why at the beginning I put, you know, take a time to look at your tree,
Right.
take a time to look at your structure. You know, you can look at a structure one day and do the pruning next day.
For
You know,
sure.
like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, tons of information, tons of information. So it's really going to be important for this one, guys, to go back to the video of this presentation to be able to kind of rewatch things. Several people have asked about Elizabeth's PowerPoint and whether that is going to be posted. And no, we do not post her PowerPoint, but you know, you can fast forward and kind of rewind back and forth through the presentation to get little points that you missed or that you want to be able to take better notes on. And I wish that there was a way for us to be able to post our Q&A, but at this point in time, we haven't been able to. So that's something I promise I will try to work on a little bit better over this year to see if there's a way to get that saved for you guys. I know you guys post a lot of questions and I try to hit everything, but sometimes I miss a few, or you might want to go back again. So I don't know, screenshot like crazy. It's, I guess, the best advice I can give. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Again, just crazy information and, you know, so much for us to be able to use this coming year. I know there's a lot of questions about how to get in touch with you. And though I would love to get out her phone number, I will not. We did have the gentleman from the Orchid Society gave his phone number and it was on the webinar and I had a lightweight heart attack for him thinking, oh my God, you're going to be getting phone calls all the time. But he was comfortable with it. But if you want to get in touch with Elizabeth, her website is www.gowithnature.net. And you can email her at gowithnature@yahoo.com. So I will say that again and slower, gowithnature@yahoo.com, or, you know, catch up with her on her website at www.gowithnature.net. I did ask her before the presentation if she was taking on new clients and customers right now. She said that she is, so be patient. To say that she's in high demand is a vast understatement. But okay, I feel like we've kept you guys for long enough today. Elizabeth, thank you so much for all the information. Looking forward to having you back later in the season for more questions about maples and citrus and everything else that we can kind of pull out of you. I know that I mentioned every class that's upcoming over the next, you know, month or so. Again, because we're running so late, I won't go back over it, but please hit our website at slopegardens.com. You'll be able to go under the What's Happening tab, and there's a whole list of our webinars, everything that's upcoming and everything that we've recorded in the past. It'll give you links to old webinars, and we look forward to seeing you guys all again soon. Come see me in the Pleasant Hill store. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next webinar. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye, Elizabeth. Thank you.